I'd like to describe one instance they called justice. Todd's ex-wife, Joanne, was sitting on the back row of the courtroom, and Judge Mon called her up to the bench. And he said, this divorce has been in court for 4 years plus. It's cost a lot of money for attorneys and state. What is it you want? And Joanne said she wanted Todd in jail. And so Todd's public defender said if he goes to jail, he'll lose his job. He will not be able to keep current on child support. And Joanne responded with, I don't care if he loses his job. She said, the church will keep me. And she said, all I want is Todd in jail. So Judge Mon hit the bench with his gavel and sentenced Todd to 1 year in jail. Todd's attorney never said one word in Todd's defense. So when we got outside the courtroom, I said to Vernice Treese, who was Todd's public defender, I said, you let him go to jail. And she said, well, everybody knows there's no justice in court. And I said, why didn't you speak up and tell what a good father Todd has been? And she said, because Judge Mon was already upset and against Todd, and she said he'd already made up his mind. So there was no use for me to argue with the judge.
How much did that attorney cost you?
I've paid $66,000 for attorney fees for Todd.
Cost you. This attorney didn't speak in his defense and let him go to jail for 1 year.
I have no idea what the court costs are, but I was there on the
Has this same attorney got all of the $66,000, or have there been other attorneys?
There's been those 22 attorneys.
22
attorneys. They take the case and then they quit because he just argues and he won't settle. And so they get tired and quit. Then when we go to another attorney, a new attorney doesn't want to take the case because it's so big and messed up, you might say. Mr. Chipman's turned it into an octopus. They can't get their arms around it. So then we went to Marty Olson, and our first interview, he said, the first reason I don't want to take your case is because the one attorney that's opposing. And he said he lies, he cheats, he turns the facts around, and he said you have to work so hard in arguing. And he said that's the first reason I don't want to take your case. But we did talk to him, and he charged a fee to read through the case, and then he decided to take the case on. He had several problems with Brent writing false documents and presenting things in court that weren't on the agenda.
Who had trouble?
Marty Olson.
And he was
our second attorney.
The second attorney.
Mm-hmm.
What was his problem with rent and whatnot?
Well, he said he just argues so much, and he's deceitful, and he...
Who's deceitful?
Brent Chipman.
Brent Chipman, her attorney.
Her attorney.
your former daughter-in-law's attorney.
Right,
Just goes on and on and on, you're saying, until your attorney gives up.
right,
And then they win.
right.
And you spent $66,000
In
on
attorney fees.
in 22 different attorneys.
Mm-hmm. And
Is
we
this-
haven't had one day of honesty in the Utah courts.
Does that shock you?
It made me bleed internally because I taught my students for 30 years that we had a wonderful justice system, and I find at my age justice is only in the textbooks, not in. I really owe my students apology because I taught them there is justice in court, and I found out there really isn't. Another attorney said he would only represent rapists and murderers because they're the only ones that get a fair trial. A divorced father in Utah could not have a fair trial.
That's kind of shocking.
That is shocking and heartbreaking. Every widow has a divorced son living in their basement, and the widow is taking care of the son. And
Wow.
that's in my neighborhood.
What street is that on?
That's on Hillside Lane in Salt Lake City. And even if they're not a widow, a very well-to-do man has his son living in his home with him. And he said, he's known Todd all his life. He said, Todd, I only sympathize with you because I know what our ex-daughter-in-law did to us and how she destroyed our son. And then when I was talking to another school teacher I used to work with, I was telling her about our neighborhood, and she said, it isn't only in your neighborhood, it's up in mine. And she lives up in Olympus Cove.
Which is a pretty rich area, isn't it?
Very rich. And it's,
And does she have a son living in her house too?
no, but she knows the neighbors that have divorced sons in their community. Some people have told me that I shouldn't pay for Todd's food, but Todd has been a wonderful father. He has passion for his children, and he's been a wonderful son. He was a wonderful husband to Joanne. He gave her everything in life that she had never had. Even today, people ask us, why in the world is Todd divorced? He treated Joanne so beautifully, and it looked like they had such a marriage. But in the beginning, when I met Joanne, she has a vicious, ballistic temper. And even though she's 39 years old, she throws temper tantrums. Historically, she would throw plates and objects, causing destruction. But in my company, in my house visiting, she attacked Todd's face and scratched his face with her nails.
Did Todd know that Joanne had this violent history